and welcome back to another episode of the Poker News podcast. It is me, your girl, Sarah Herring, here with Jeff Platt and Chad Holloway. We have got an awesome show for you today. Chad Holloway somehow managed to finagle an interview for the podcast with the one and only Phil Hellmuth. Which, Chad, I have to understand, every single time I've ever asked Phil Hellmuth for an interview, he always says, okay, 2 minutes, or like, okay, but while we're walking, okay, 2 minutes while we're walking, boom. And then like the camera guy's setting up and his hands are shaking and like Phil's like standing there while he's trying to get the record going. And please tell me, before we actually get into the interview, how did you get it? And did he tell you could only talk to him for 2 minutes?
Well, it's a couple things with Phil, right? So one of the big things is timing. It's all about timing. So if you're trying to get him during a tournament or something, it's going to be a little more difficult. But given the world we're living in right now, I knew, and from his social media as well, that he's been spending a lot of time at home. So I thought this might be a good time to get him, especially with the news of the World Series of Poker having so many online bracelet events. He's the all-time winner. He doesn't have an online bracelet event. So I thought, this is going to be a good opportunity to reach out to him, hopefully get him. And I did. And he's going to talk all about that stuff. And then plus, Wisconsin, we got that Wisconsin connection. I live here. Phil is from here. We know a lot of the same people. I play poker with a lot of the guys he used to play poker with before he became the Phil Hellmuth that we know today. So there's a little bit of that connection there, and knowing the same people. We've just been close over the years. And then real quick, lastly, I think I've reported every bracelet win of his since number 12. So 12, 13, 14, and 15. Like, I've been there. And so I think he might think of me as a little bit of like a good luck charm. I remember after he won one of them, he came and gave me a hug, and we did it again, or something like that. And I hope to be there for 16, 17, 18 if that happens as well.
Now, when you reference these mutual friends and acquaintances you have over there in the Wisco, are you referring to Poker Ho, or who are these friends you guys have?
Poker would be the most well-known. Mark Kroon, he's actually been on the ESPN broadcast and stuff. He's a character.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, he's around. So he's definitely the most prominent one. And whenever Phil Hellmuth comes back to Wisconsin, he usually hangs out with Poker. They play Chinese poker and have some good times. And so he's certainly up there. There's a lot of, I think each region all around the country, maybe even all around the world, you have these pockets of poker players. And a lot of them have been around. They're not known. They might go out to the World Series of Poker or something, but they're not poker professionals. They're just working men or farmers or whatever who have been in the poker scene. And Wisconsin is no different. There's actually a pretty long and rich history here, as I know there are in other states throughout the country.
Yeah, well, we're from Texas, so we've got a little bit of history here. No big deal. But
Sarah, I just wrote an article today about Texas and poker. They are having Kojak's Poker Club, which is in Midland, Texas. They're having an 8-event series that's starting this week. So it's like the first kind of live tournament poker series that I've discovered. So I decided to write about it. That article's up on PokerNews. So we're kind of between that. We've seen Venetian offer some various tournaments, a few other places here and there. So we're slowly starting to see some tournament poker returning to the live realm.
Well, that's one of the things we indeed intended to talk about today. So while we're just rolling with the punches here, let's talk a little bit about who is opening up. Seminole Hard Rock opened up. Florida seems to be per the usual, and I love Florida, don't get me wrong, but Florida seems to be per the usual, just pew pew, going for it like how they like to. Since you're the man in Vegas, you're our correspondent locally in Vegas there, Jeff. Talk to us a little bit about what's been going on in Vegas and how the response has been.
Yeah, we talked about this briefly last time, but it just seems like more and more of the city is opening up. And I think now that you can say the same things regarding Poker Room, and Sahara's Poker Room is opening up this week. And I just think they're next on the list. We're going to check them off and move on to the next one. And I expect to see a couple more open in the next couple weeks. There was buzz last time we talked about Aria opening up soon. Aria will open on July 1st. I don't think poker is in the plans for now, but who knows? It's like this 5-handed poker seems to be doing just fine. Chad touched on it briefly, but the Venetian is going to run a $250 shootout tournament. So that'd be the first multi-table tournament that we have seen in Vegas, just a bunch of 5-handed tables. The winners will all meet. It's a $250 buy-in. They're going to run it on both Friday and Saturday. So I'm very curious to see the type of turnout that they get. There's an 80-player maximum on those shootout tournaments. And I, at this point, would just be shocked if they don't hit the 80-player max. I think it's that simple. That kind of shows you the direction that Vegas is going in right now.
And Chad, you wrote the article actually on what's happening in South Florida. What's the sense that you got?
Yeah, Tony Burns, who, former tournament director and now is in the poker marketing, I touched base with them about what they're doing down in South Florida at the Seminole Hard Rock properties. And they actually took it a little bit slower than a lot of the properties that are located in South Florida. They could have opened sooner than they did. They waited until the 12th of this month to do so. And they've got what's called a safe and sound guidelines that they're opening with. And it just includes certain precautions and procedures that they're going to take. It's a 45 table room. They're only going to be operating at 25 of them. They're going to have the plexiglass dividers that we've seen so much of on social media. All games are going to be played a max of 6-handed. Players and staff are both going to be required to wear masks. I know that is something we're not seeing at a lot of places. We might see the staff being required to, but players not so much. This is going to be both, so that should be good. Cards and chips are going to be cleaned on a regular basis. No food in the poker room, and only one table or seat change allowed per session. So by doing that, they're trying to keep things localized instead of spreading possible germs all across chips and cards at different tables. Trying to limit that a little bit. I think they're basically following in the footsteps of what they did at the Hard Rock Tampa, which was their first property to open earlier this month. That was, in my opinion, kind of like a test run. Like, let's open it, let's see how it does. Obviously, it was a resounding hit. The tables were full, the waiting list was long, and so they've adopted that now to the other Seminole properties. And if we know the Seminole Hard Rock brand, they are amongst the best in the poker world. So I think we're going to see them continue to be a leader, and in this case, in how to properly reopen a room and phase themselves back into things. They do want to do tournament poker. It's been huge at their venues for a while, but they said, and I quote, "When the time is right, the series will return with the same first-class experience that the players have come to know and love." So I don't think they're going to rush anything. They're going to play everything, pretty cautiously, and I think that's the right approach right now, given all that's going on.
Which I'm just curious for you guys, right? So I'm in Texas, you're in Wisconsin, you're in Vegas, and Christy Arnett and Amo Fosho and Pierre Paulo, some poker playing friends of mine came to Texas rather, this last week, and it was kind of my first dipping my toes like into the water of going out again. We went to a couple restaurants. They had patios, we were outside, but it was my first experience in a long time really being out in the world again. And I was totally shocked. Like, nobody was wearing a mask. I mean, very few people were wearing masks. Even the servers at restaurants weren't wearing the masks. And I've been pretty seriously keeping track of the numbers and what have you, which they might be skewed. It's really hard to know what's going on, but the numbers in Houston are really exploding. And yet, contrary to the fact that the numbers are saying this is way worse than it was before, we're totally done with this like social distancing. And we don't really have this political podcast, but I'm just really curious for you guys, like, what is it like where you are? Is it the same? Are we all just like, dude, we're sick of it. We spent like 2 months in lockdown and we are donezo, which I kind of get too.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Jeff. No, on you.
Wisconsin was one of the first states to kind of flip the switch, as we say, and for us, it was almost literally overnight. The Wisconsin Supreme Court made a ruling that contradicted the governor's orders, limited what he could do, and so all these precautions that were in place, got turned off overnight, and then it became a hodgepodge of different counties, right? So the county health commissioners do have the power to put in these certain restrictions, maybe not the governor. So we had certain counties like Dane County, where Madison is, and in Milwaukee, and some of the bigger cities in Wisconsin still continued to operate under all these restrictions, whereas other counties, like where I live, it was just almost a free-for-all. It was like, all right, you guys are open back up, but we recommend you do these things. We're just not requiring it. And that's kind of where it remains today, is there's all these recommendations in place, and some counties have more restrictions than others. And even some businesses have more restrictions than others. I know that Menards, which is a popular big hardware store, lumber supply place, with many locations throughout the Midwest, requires a mask. And there's been stories about people, the cops coming, charging people with trespass because people throw a fit that they don't want to wear a mask when they're in the store and such. So, but yeah, I think, Sarah, to kind of mention what you said, I think people at this point, it seems to me, because when I go out, I still wear a mask when I'm in the grocery store, in a Walmart or something. Most people I see aren't. And I think my perception of it is most people are kind of over it. That, yeah, maybe the numbers are going to spike, but you know what? It's worth, it's not worth shutting everything down again. They're just willing to take the risk, or willing to deal with it, or willing to jeopardize other people, I guess, in some instances. So I think that's kind of just where it's at right now.
And here I feel like we're leaning towards free-for-all mode. I think Nevada did such a great job over the first couple months in containing the virus. Numbers are very low. Numbers have just been very low in Nevada throughout this whole thing. It has not been a hot spot. We are, of course, opening the door to that potential, considering the amount of travel that Vegas is still getting. I just said that the hotel and casinos are continuing to open up. That means that their crowds have been really good, perhaps too good. I don't know. I said it last week. I've been in Red Rock now a couple times, and it's just kind of, we're in free-for-all mode. Like there's no the staff wears masks. Sure, there's only 3 seats at the blackjack table instead of 5, but that's pretty much it. I mean, you could go to a bar and play video poker and you'd be right next to somebody. Sure, they only put 2 seats for 4 slot machines, but people just move the seat, right next to the machine. Like it just doesn't, there aren't that many stipulations in place. And that's why, I'm so impressed with what Seminole's doing with requiring masks in poker, because I think poker's just a little bit different. And I think that it's been proven that at least to a small extent, that masks will help. They will help prevent the spread of coronavirus. So why not, at least for a month or 2, just require the use of masks? And I know they think that they're going to run into those people who Chad mentioned. Well, it's a free country and I don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to. Well, you do in a private property, because they can make that rule. And so I wish more poker rooms here in Vegas would take that step.
It's true. And even for me, right, carrying a gun. Okay, some establishments say, we don't want you to come in here if you have that. And you just have to honor and respect that, because it's a private business that makes its own decisions about what its rules are. And people have to also understand that it is a free country, but that's also why businesses are able to make their own decisions about what they're looking for or what they want. And even entire nations, right? So the Czech Republic they instituted a rule almost immediately that everyone had to wear a mask, and there's huge fines, essentially, is what I think happens if you don't wear a mask. And they're another one of the countries that has really contained it, I think, very effectively and without really infringing too much. I mean, they wear a mask, but everything's
I don't know, Sarah.
open.
You in this country, in the United States, man, the only thing I've seen people get riled up more about people worrying about taking away their guns is making them wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's pretty people have just, I mean, I wear a mask. Like I said, when I still go out in a very public place, I'm still going to wear the mask. That's, my choice. But some people act like by requiring you to wear a mask that you're taking away, rights and liberties and things like that. I mean, to me, it's just common sense and decency, but.
Yeah, well, and for the reasons we've spoken about, which is that the unfortunate thing is that you're mostly trying to protect other people, and it should be hopefully seen as such, as a courtesy. And I will say, Jeff, it was sort of selfish of me to ask this question, because my physical therapist told me on Friday that she has this trip that she's still doing in July to Las Vegas. So I really need to know what's happening in Las Vegas, because I don't need this girl coming back and trying to get me sick. Okay, enough about all the virus, you guys.
You're like, physical therapy is hard enough. I don't need to catch catch coronavirus
Thank
while
you.
I'm there.
Thank you. Please. So like keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to be like, okay, where are you going? What are your plans?
I'll
I need
track
to know.
her. Yeah.
You can go out and kind
Yeah,
of
I'll
see
go
what's
track
happening.
her.
Well, I just, I think it's important, you guys, even though, I mean, we've been doing this podcast for years and years and years now, and we're in just a really interesting, weird time. This has been such a bizarre experience. This is the first summer many of us have had. And so I do think it's important to just talk a little bit about, what's happening in the world we're living in right now, and obviously how it's affecting the industry that we're in. And I'm super, super impressed for the most part and proud of our industry as a whole. I think we've done really well. And part of that is putting a lot of these series online, which is something we were able to do and transition into, which of course, that's mostly the news we're going to talk about, and primarily focusing on the World Series of Poker circuit events. We've got some big names who've come out on top. But before we get to that, Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about, you're our resident Poker Central guy. So let's talk a little bit about the Poker Masters Online PLO.
Yeah, Poker Masters Online coming back next week with a PLO series. So we had the Poker Masters Online a couple months ago. It was considered enough of a success by both Party Poker and Poker Central to run it back in a sense. I think you'll see the Poker Masters Online for years to come, not just be on in coronavirus land. And so next up is trying it out with a Poker Masters Online Pot Limit Omaha series. It will be 14 events leading up to the main event. The winner on the leaderboard through the 14 events, just like what happened in the Super High Roller Bowl online series, will get a seat into the championship event. That is a $50K. Now, most of these high rollers are 5Ks, 10Ks, and 25Ks. The winner of that series will also receive a purple jacket. And then there's a mini version of the Poker Masters PLO series as well, with buy-ins more around the $500, the 1K range with a 5K main event. So, I mean, this is kind of a bold step. We've mentioned online poker blowing up, sure, and tournament fields are crazy, but we haven't really seen anybody try with PLO tourneys. I know GG has thrown in some into the mix. The World Series of Poker circuit has thrown one in here and there. But this is kind of bold to guarantee, a milli for the 25Ks, to guarantee 1.5 million for the 50K, to guarantee 250K for the 5Ks. I'm just very curious to see how it all plays out. So our coverage on Poker Go will start on June 22nd. That will be next Monday. And we'll also be on Poker Go's Facebook page. We'll also be on Party Poker TV's Twitch channel. And I will be on the call with the Pot Limit Omaha master himself, Mr. Joey Ingram.
It'll be interesting to see, because this is something, Chad, like you mentioned last week, that for a lot of these people who are primarily interested in coming to the World Series of Poker to grind the mixed game events, I know some people say PLO is not a mixed game, but it's not Texas Hold'em, which I would say is what we consider our traditional game. I'm interested to see if this will attract people who maybe would be coming to Vegas, who may now go overseas to be able to maybe capture some of that money in a field where they feel like they have an edge.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, luckily the dates here, June 21st through June 29th, does leave that little window to possibly play everything in the Poker Masters Online PLO series and still make it to either New Jersey or Nevada to play in the WSOP.com bracelet events, which start on July 1st. But I do think we're going to see a lot of people, because if you're in the U.S., you can't play this PLO series. It's on Party Poker, and of course, that's not open to players in the U.S. right now. And so I think what we're going to see are we're going to see a good contingent of players that do travel in to Nevada or New Jersey to play on WSOP.com. But I think we're also going to see others who wait because they have so many other options outside. For instance, the Poker Masters PLO series. And also, there's going to be a little overlap with the WSOP bracelet events at GGpoker. And plus, you toss in the fact that it's not easy for people to travel in and out of the United States right now. There's still travel restrictions and bans in place. I think we will certainly see kind of a delineation, some people staying home and waiting while others will travel in. I'm actually pretty curious to see how that all plays out. And also, because there's overlap between the bracelet events at WSOP.com and GGpoker. So you cannot possibly play them all. You could play a lot of them, but at some point because you can't play GGpoker from the US, you can't play WSOP.com from outside of Nevada or New Jersey. So there are going to have to be some choices being made, and it'll be interesting to see who who plays what. I know Daniel Negreanu, who has talked a lot about his plans on Dat Poker podcast. He is going to play a lot of the WSOP.com events, but when the GG series starts up, because he's a GGpoker ambassador, he's going to travel to Mexico with his wife, rent a place, and play all those events as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. There are no lack of options for online poker players right now.
Sarah, you've probably seen this because it's been on Instagram. How about our guy Negreanu just getting shredded? I mean, he's down to like 140, lean, mean. It's like he's in fighting shape, ready to go, muscles everywhere, and then he's going to bulk up for the World Series of Poker. I mean, this man is in peak physical condition.
Well, you will be really sad to know that I have not been on social media for like 2 weeks.
Wow,
I know.
Usually you at least make the once a week appearance on Twitter to like some posts.
It's just been too much. There's just too much going on. And this like sweet, soft mom I cannot see any more horrible videos or anything. Like after like 2 days, I was like, I can't take this anymore. So I actually don't know what's going on, but I do know, I just saw that 6 minutes ago, he's getting ready for his WSOP bracelet bets. And Daniel, I feel like is pretty much always in some state of trying to be some better version of himself, which I have great respect for and appreciate. And, I'm just over here trying to figure out how I can get alcohol back into my normal routine. Like, how can I work this into my mom life? Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this GG high roller, but beforehand, and while we are talking about Daniel, let's get Daniel's take on why he made the shift to GG poker.
What's up, people? Dean Eggs here. As you may have heard, I signed on as an ambassador for GG Poker, and you may be wondering why. Well, the key reason is the product, okay? They have the absolute best software on the market, not just the desktop, but also for mobile. In addition to that, they really have invested into this GG Masters, right? It's a $150 buy-in freeze out. You know how I feel about freeze outs. And there's also a big carrot at the top. Leaderboard prize up to $500,000. Each and every week so far, there's been added money. So come get yours. Use sign-up code PokerNews.
Well, we just had a giant high roller, the GG High Roller Millions, which I've got to be real with you guys. When I was reading through this article, again, it just comes back to when you only know some of the players' real names, I really only care about those players that I know their real names. But this one was taken down by Lester Edoc. It's Monster Dad, right? Something.
Yeah, Monster. The
Dad.
S is a dollar sign.
Yeah. Oh, so clever. But Chad, you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, I mean, these high roller series on Party Poker, it's strange to me, right? Because I see these results and I'm like, oh, it's an online tournament, and I'm like, oh wait, he took down more than $250,000, or in some cases, these huge scores. And it's really interesting because, in my opinion, as both a reporter and a poker fan, the online high rollers don't get the same amount of interest and maybe appreciation as, say, the live versions of various high rollers. And it's pretty interesting to see that dichotomy. But this was just, to me, further testament of what GG Poker is doing, that they have this this high roller million series and really killing it. And yeah, I mean, with the WSOP coming up there as well, it's pretty interesting. And then you look at some of the players at the final table. Ivan Luca out of Argentina, I mean, he's always killing it. Simon Higgins out of the UK, Louis Faria out of Brazil. It's a lot of recognizable names in this huge field.
Yeah, and
Buddy,
GG can just Buddy loves GG. And it's remarkable how many tournaments they run also. So in this one Sunday, they had the High Roller Millions, the Global Millions, the Bryn High Rollers 25K, the High Roller Blade Prime, the High Roller Blade Mulligan, the High Roller Blade Closer, the GG Masters, the High Rollers Battle Royale, the Bounty Hunters Main Event, the High Roller Main Event 1K, the High Roller Sunday Warm-Up $500 buy-in, and the High Roller PLO Main Event 1K. And like, they get fantastic turnouts for all of these events. It's like GG is just taking over the poker world, and they'll continue to do so come this summer.
Well, let's get into some of the meat of the WSOP circuit events, which happened also online. Let's just briefly scan over some of the champs, of which, of course, I mostly cared about Cammie Hudson because I've shared many cocktails with her and many deep inner secrets. She is the better half of Calvin Anderson. Also, just a super fun, smart chick who I think has actually had like a pretty decent amount of results. And it's interesting because she ended up heads up. She took down 50K for the win, and she ended up heads up against Chance Corneth, who is like one of their very close friends. So I always find that's kind of an interesting situation to be in. But obviously, she pulled no punches because she's the one who took down that event.
Yeah, and she's a good player. I played with her both in the live and online realms, and she's really good. I mean, you mentioned how she's got all the friends in the poker world. I know she's really, really close with Maria Ho, and she's put in some results over the last year and a half or so. Here's Buddy. He's ready to just resume his part on the PokerNews podcast. So she does beat Chance heads up. I noticed there were some big names really throughout this field. There's Brock Wilson and John Turner at the final table. And Kishman Davia just misses out. Chad, I have a major problem with your reporter, Jesse Fullen. Great guy, okay? Just an excellent human being. So, Sarah, if we go to event number 7, the High Roller, which was won by Sean Daniels for $75K, terrific performance, deserves some love. You know, he mentions like the others to cash the tournament include James Carroll, William Corvino, Matt Berkey. There were some people that are big names that fell short. Ryan LaPlante, Jason Somerville, Gordon Vale. But he doesn't mention me. I mean, I co-host a podcast, you know, for PokerNews. I finished 11th in the High Roller. Don't mean to brag. And just no mention, you know, at all. And then so in this event that Cammie won, I finished 61st. Again, guys, really just don't mean to brag. Just a huge score. And he types my name in as Jeff E, like Jeffy, Mavs USC, Platt. I mean, can we fire this guy already, Chad, or what? What's the deal here? Or was it you going in and making the late edits?
Jeffy.
I did change one of his. Well, I didn't change the Jeffy because I got a kick out of it from there's a movie called The Ringer with Johnny Knoxville where his name is Jeffy in it. And so I kind of got a chuckle there. But he did do another recap where he spelled your name Geoff.
Unbelievable.
And I said, well, I better change this one just so that it's not too confusing. But I do like to leave a little leeway for the reporters to have
troll
a little fun.
Jeff.
Yeah, a little trolling job.
And, you know, as we say that, I see in his event number 10 recap that was won by Michael Martyr, Parks Big Stack, another really, really, really good player. He beat Shannon Shore heads up to win that 50K. He said big names in the field that fell short of the money included Jeff Rowe, Mavs USC, Platt. So Jesse Fullen just keeping up the good work, I guess.
What's with the screen name, Jeff? What does Mav SUSC mean?
So it's Mavs USC. I got really creative on this one, Chad. I went to school at USC and loved the Dallas Mavericks, and that was pretty much it. Mavs USC.
Gotcha.
Here we are.
Well, the good news is we now know who you are on WSOP.com, and so, well, are you going to be playing some of these bracelet events coming up this summer?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how, you know, the workload is. We'll see what the PokerGo production plans are and how involved I'll be in those. But yeah, I'd like to fire some, you know, come for that bracelet. So maybe we'll be able to mix it up in the online ranks a little bit.
Well, for those who are out there in the world, not in the United States, who are able to just freely play poker on the internet at their leisure, you guys definitely will want to check out one of the PokerNews podcast's most loyal sponsors, Run It Once. We can give you guys a special discount for your first deposit if you go to once.run/PNPod. That's once.run/PNPod. Now, I know you guys basically just listened to all the rest of everything we were talking about, mostly because you wanted to get to the Phil Hellmuth part.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you just checked out the timestamps and you're just now rolling into this sector right now so we can hear what the man that is Phil Hellmuth has to say. Chad, do you want to tease this, just kind of set it up for us?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to chat with Phil, and I think it's important to know that Phil and I go back a little bit of ways. We have a good rapport. We know each other, and so I think it starts off with that familiarity right off the bat. And we get into talking about what his life has been like during the pandemic. He was shut indoors for a while, and then transition into, of course, the WSOP bracelet events that are coming up, and what his plans are for that, and what winning an online bracelet might mean to him and his legacy. So I guess without further ado, here's my chat with Mr. Phil Hellmuth. Yeah, I was going to ask, I seen that you and the wife were, self-isolating for a good amount of time there.
Yeah, we did 88 days. March 8th, I went to Draymond Green's surprise birthday party in L.A.
Right.
We took a private jet back down there and a private jet back same night. And then from that point, 1 in the morning or whatever, it seemed like I isolated one time, and I think it was about 10 days ago I finally came out again. I don't know. But anyway, it seemed like other than that trip, if you disinclude that trip, it seems like I was 90 days of isolating.
Right. And I seen on Twitter, I can't recall, what was the trip that took you out to finally get out, away from the house?
Well, I went over to my best friend's house. I think it was 2 weeks ago on Monday. That was the first time. And then I went down to Cabo with an NBA star friend of mine and a couple of friends. One of our friends sent his just Falcon 900.
Right.
And so it was kind of weird because so it was weird to go to Cabo for 4 days, but it was a really nice vacation for me because even with all the isolation, I was literally playing poker 6 days a week online.
Wow. Yeah, I seen that you mentioned online that on social media that you had been playing.
Yeah, and it's been, I won. What's an average house cost in Wisconsin?
I don't know, probably like $125K.
So I won like 4 of those or something.
Well, very nice. And so I guess let me ask you this then. The WSOP bracelet event's coming up next month. You've been playing a little bit online by the sounds of it. Are you ready for it?
Well, I've never been more ready for a World Series of Poker. It just so happens it's right in my strong suit. So I've been playing No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha, 90 out of the last 100 days online.
Right.
So now they have an online tournament, So I feel like I'm sharp, and being sharp means a lot,
Right.
There was like 7-8 years there where I would just come into the series not sharp, and wouldn't spend the time and effort, and then I'd always be a step behind in the games because I wasn't actually a practicing professional poker player for those 7-8 years. And then I had enough. I'm like, all right, come on. You have to work on your games hard if you want to be great. And you have to stay. It's not about current stuff to me. It's not whatever they think that's relevant to me. More to me, it's relevant to sharpen my own theories, and what I see. I trust what I see in game theory.
Sure.
And it's worked out well for me. So I don't play like everybody else. And I don't, it so happens that I had never spent any time learning. What was that theory that they were all using?
I'm not even sure. Just GTO, Game Theory Optimal?
Yeah, GTO.
Yeah.
Right. So the day after I actually looked at GTO. I actually spent a little time on GTO, and by that I mean 4 or 5 hours. And then the next day I won a bracelet. Not using GTO, but understanding what they were doing.
Gotcha.
So, not knowing that they were floating me with nothing and taking pots away from me, suddenly I'm like, wow, this is what they're doing. And so then I just bomb it on 4th Street every time.
Right.
Yeah, you want to float on the flop? I'm going to let you float the flop, but I'm going to bomb every 4th Street. you know? And so, you know, you have to make a few adjustments to what they're doing.
Well, what are your thoughts? You know, you're the all-time bracelet winner, and this summer we're going to see 31 bracelet events on WSOP.com, even more on GGpoker after that. You know, what are your thoughts about the WSOP taking things online, at least for the summer? I know they hope to do a live version later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I support it. You know, I think that, you know, the World Series of Poker has done a really good job, and now's an opportunity for some people that are better at online tournaments to win some bracelets. And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
And so, you know, I think that there may well be more skill involved in some real world tournaments where you have the additional, you know, ability to read people.
Right.
You know, and so, I mean, I think, you know, reading people is a huge part of poker, but then, you know, some skills added back because you get to play more hands.
I know that if I recall, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I recall you making a run in an online event at the WSOP. You know, it was exciting because everyone was thinking you might win a World Series of Poker bracelet online, which is something you don't have. Obviously, you're going to have a great opportunity to do that this summer. You know, is that something, an online bracelet, something that appeals to you?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was last year. It was the last World Series of Poker, and I'm not sure the date, but it was early in the series where I started. Well, I'm not sure it was early, but sometime in June, I'm playing an online event. And for me, in some ways, going through the motions of playing it, but for the first time in, you know, 5, 6, 10 years, I was at least, you know, the one thing that I'd done is my wife had helped me out and gone and bought me a new iPad. And so I had a brand new iPad. She fully loaded it for me. You know, she spent some time doing this. You can't just order one up, you know.
Right. And so that's how you were playing, was on the iPad.
So, yeah, for the first time, I'm playing on a much bigger screen. And I needed that, and I, you know, and I just wasn't, I'd always played on my phone. And I remember getting close to the money and then deciding to go in and play a real world tournament. Well, blessing in disguise. So I took an Aria limo over to the Rio. And the minute I switched to my phone, things seemed to not go as well. You know what I mean?
You're right.
And I don't know. Yeah, sure. I'm in a limo on the way to the Aria. I go in, I play this real world tournament, and I last 3 hands or something. I mean, I didn't last long. I bust out of the tournament, and I'm like, okay, at least I have this. But I didn't have a ton of chips at that point. I mean, I think the cost of going over in the limo, playing on your phone, I probably took a taxi back. You know, it's just faster.
Right.
Probably just stopped in the taxi line. And I remember when I got upstairs, and, you know, I was worried about the elevator, dropping hands in the elevator. I remember when I got back to my room, how relieved I was to then pop onto the iPad. And just the screen's just so much bigger. You have a much better feeling for what's going on than playing on a phone.
So is that?
I got an early double, and and then all of a sudden, you know, we were close to the money. And it's like, you know, when you're playing in a regular tournament, it takes a long time to hit the money. Well, all of a sudden we're in the money, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. And it's been a long time since I'd been in the money in a World Series tournament. I'd skipped most of the online ones anyway. And then all of a sudden, with 100 players left, I'm chip leader, and I'm tweeting it out. And all of a sudden, the poker world, it felt like the press just kicked into gear. And all of a sudden, there was live coverage of that event. And then people in 2 or 3 spots. And all of a sudden, there are a ton of people watching. And it looks like I have a real shot to win a bracelet. Now, we got to the final 10, 20 players or 10. I was chip leader still with 20 left. And then with 10 left, I was first or second in chips. And so, at that point, it might have been 3 a.m. I woke my wife up. I said, honey, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to wake you up because I want you to see all my final tables. Kind of a marital contract, so I woke her up. You could tell she wasn't happy. But she had to be happy that
that you were there.
And then I remember the guy who finished, I think who won it, started just moving in moving in. I was just betting 50 big blinds on every hand. And I was like, well, this guy can't win. He's overplaying everything. And then he claimed that his computer was stuck. Oh, yeah, it was stuck where I can only bet all in, And unfortunately for me, while he was going a little bit crazy, he started accumulating chips, and I had to I think I made a stand with pocket fours.
Right.
I think I was down to my last 12 big blinds, 11 big blinds, or maybe 15. And he had king 10 offsuit. And I remember it came queen 9 blank, and the river was a king. And I just thought to myself, man, if I win that, I'm up to 25 big blinds or whatever it was, 30, and I have a real chance to win this. And so, just as we got the poker world as fired up as it could be at 3 a.m, I finished 5th or 6th, I think maybe 5th.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And so, but I was really close.
So what's the plan what's the plan for July? Are you going to get the iPad out, head back to the Aria and play some of these events?
Correct. So my plan is Aria Hotel, which, they sent. I know the restrictions they're doing against COVID are extreme. I mean, extreme stuff.
Right.
And so's the Wynn, to give credit to MGM and the Wynn. They're the two that have stepped up, the casinos that have stepped up the most. And so, if you have to be in any hotel on the planet, the Aria is certainly near the top of the list of the places you would want to be.
Sure.
And you're right at the top of the list for casinos in Vegas. So I'll go to the Aria. I'll play on my iPad. And maybe I'll bring my computer along. We'll see if that works. But the iPad's nice. And just seems to flow well for me.
Right.
And one tournament a day isn't that taxing. As you know, I mean, there's 2 events per day, and sometimes we're on a day 2 and we play, and then we hop into 2 more tournaments that day. And so sometimes you bust 3 times in a day at the series.
Right.
And in any case, it keeps you there late. And so this, you start at 3, and I'll probably start 2 or 3 hours late every time. This is my strategy. But, there could be, no matter how good you are, I'm sure the structures aren't going to be like they are in the real world.
Right.
And so I think that's going to lend itself to more time off. I think it's going to be an easier, more relaxed series. Plus, we don't have to rush into the Rio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can wake up, roll out of bed.
Wake up at noon, roll out of bed. If I feel completely safe in the gym, the gyms scare me a little bit, but, I can put on a mask and go to the gym if I feel it's not too crowded, if I feel there's good social distancing, if I feel they're wiping everything down, and for me, it's the exercise bike. Usually I'd lift too.
Sure.
So I might have to give up lifting, but, to me, I'll probably hit the exercise bike every day. Something I started last year because my knee was a little weak, and I knew I had to go to Galapagos Island and Machu Picchu. And so my doctor's like, start hitting the bike, because I was a little worried I'd have to cancel that trip. In any case, I'm doing all the talking, but I'm trying to kind of wind around and give you an idea of what I'm doing.
It's all good. And
now, Chad, you actually got Phil on this interview because you are working on another project. Is this a top secret project, or is this some sort of an article we can have our homies tune into later at some point?
It's more of a top secret project. I'm a firm believer that you don't start promoting or dropping hints about a project unless you've got all your ducks lined up and you're ready to go. Not quite there yet, but it's it's a very big poker history related project. Also kind of like a where are they now sort of project too, trying to just talk to a lot of people who've been around the poker world for a long time. Phil Hellmuth, obviously one of them. So if and when this project comes to fruition, which I hope will be later this year, you'll be hearing from Phil Hellmuth and quite a few other big name pros that I've had the chance to talk to here over the last probably 8 or 9 months. So I'm pretty excited. Look forward to sharing more with you guys about it sometime, but not quite there yet.
Now, Jeff, you failed to let me lead you into mentioning who won the WSOP-C Online Circuit main event, the big grand finale. Talk us through it.
I was so focused on me and, you know, my performance throughout this series and the attention that was devoted to me. I kind of missed where the spotlight should be shining, and that would be on one Frank Marasco for winning the main event of the World Series of Poker Online Finale Circuit Series. 1,109 entries, which is absurd in the U.S. for a $525 buy-in. That created a prize pool of $554,500. I mean, the guarantee was $300K, and they just blew it out of the water once again. Marasco takes it down for more than $127,000. Thomas Lim finishes in second. Anthony Zeno, our guy, finishes in fifth for about $27K. This field was absolutely stacked, and congrats to Frank Spaghetti Marasco for a big win, more than $127K.
It's important to note that everybody that we mentioned winning these rings, this was the finale, the end of the circuit season, right? So they had so many live stops canceled because of the pandemic. This was the WSOP's way of rounding out the circuit. And so every winner from each of those events got a seat into the Global Casino Championship, which is going to take place online in September. David Larson was one of those winners. He had already had a seat locked up from his accomplishments playing live throughout the season. So what that means is that the next person on the national leaderboard and the points leaderboard, it'll open a spot. So it's supposed to be the top 50, but because he already had a spot, that spot will get down to the player who was in 51st place. And I'm working on obtaining a official list of all the qualifiers for the national or the Global Casino Championship. And once I have that, we'll put together a nice article on PokerNews and have all those who will be coming to WSOP.com in September to compete for $1 million prize pool and a WSOP bracelet.
Now, this is interesting because I actually don't recognize the name Thomas Lim for probably a lot of reasons, but I do recognize the name OTB Red Baron. So just every now and then, sometimes the online name is the name I need to see or recognize. And why? Why do I recognize the name OTB Red Baron?
I think that's one of those names that were out there in the online poker world back in the day, right? So OMG Phil Galfond or OMG Clay Aiken is Phil Galfond, and like there are certain online screen names that's just how we got to know people. Tom Dwan, before we know who was Tom Dwan, it was Durr, and there are just a handful like that. And OTB Red Baron is one of those names that just kind of was around during that period.
And a lot of players in like Nevada will use one of those really famous names. So you're like, oh my God, that's OTB Red Baron. And then you're like, wait a minute, no, that doesn't make sense. So like OTB Red Baron is Jonas Mals out of Belgium. And like to both of y'all's point, he's just an absolute online legend, a crusher, especially in cash games. And so Thomas Lim was like, oh, okay, OTB Red Baron's available on WSOP.com in Nevada. I'll be sure to use that. And so you run into that every once in a while here in the US of A.
So sick, man. And it's so interesting just looking at the payouts there. It just kills me when I think for some people, it's difficult. It's a huge journey to get to a final table, right? And when you get there, you're just like so happy and so stoked. And then you bust, in 9th place for $7,000, and then first place walks away with $127,000. It's just like, for whatever reason, man, when you see these payouts and you just like look, it's just like, oh gosh, that must really hurt. That hurt really bad. You needed that 127. Nobody wanted the like $7,000. Sorry.
It's just max pain. It's max pain. You get so close. You play so well. You finish 9 out of 1,109 entries and just are 120K short. And you're 8 spots out.
Just hurts, you guys. All right, well, you guys, if our homies out there, first of all, tell us what's happening where you are. Is it a free-for-all? What's going on? Are people adjusting? Second of all, if you're playing poker where you are, tell us how that's going. We would love to just get some first-hand accounts of what's happening out there in the world. And additionally, if you guys have good ideas for guests for next week or stories for next week, please let us know at Chad A. Holloway, at Jeff Platt, at Auntie Chardonnay. Just keep us in the loop, guys. And yeah, anything else before I let the homies go?
I'm checking right now on Twitter to see if at Jeffy Platt is available. It appears to be. Maybe I should jump on that.
Get it, man. Get it. Run that parody account. Then I would know I'd finally have made it if I can get a parody account.
Oh, so good. Oh, so good. Oh, Jeffy. Also check Jeffy, Geoffee.
Yeah, check them all.
Oh my gosh, guys. All right, well, thank you all for tuning in. Of course, we will catch you guys next week. Deuces.
The key to winning big is using every little bit of knowledge to your advantage. At Odds Checker, we give you the edge. Better odds, better picks, and better offers to make you a better bettor. Why settle for less? Quickly compare the odds at every sportsbook to ensure that you're getting the best price to maximize your return. Not only that, but we have experts on every sport, from hoops and football through to soccer and boxing. Our experts analyze the form and study the stats to deliver you totally free picks and parlays. OddsChecker also highlights the most lucrative welcome offers in the industry. If you're looking to open an account, then you are eligible for hundreds of dollars in totally free bets. If you're new to legal sports betting, then we're here to help, offering simple advice to understand betting guides and updates on your state's current legislative situation. Visit us at www.oddschecker.com/US. OddsChecker. Sports betting smarter.